back. And for those of you that support me over on Patreon, thank you so very much for your subscriptions. I greatly appreciate them. If you're interested in supporting the channel in that way, you can go to patreon.com, set up an account, look for Angle Guys, and choose a subscription level. And it's a way to support the channel through monthly subscription. You'll get the daily forecast over there a day early. You'll also get other readings that are only available over on that channel every month, depending on the level of subscription service that you choose. If you have any questions about that or a private reading, you can always message me at the Facebook business page, and I can answer any questions you may have there. This is the forecast for January. Everybody's like coffee waffy. What's going on? Can you guys like clear your throats, please? I'm on camera. Thanks. All right. So this is the January 2021 Tarotscope for the sign of Gemini. So if you have a sun, moon, or rising in the sign of Gemini, you may want to watch this just to kind of get an idea of what January may have in store for you. Or if you have heavily placed planets in the sign of Gemini, you may want to watch this. I consider 3 or more planets to be heavily placed. So like it would be significant, even if it's the, you know, smaller moon planets like Lilith or Chiron, or, you know, if you've got Gemini working in those two, you may want to watch this. So, and if you're cross-watching for a Gemini or on behalf of a Gemini because there's a significant Gemini in your life, that's completely fine too. Feel free to share this video out with any Geminis that you think might be able to use it. And I think that's it. It is a broad spectrum reading intended for a lot of people who may view it at, you know, whenever they view it. And so therefore, the messages will be broad and sweeping. You have to kind of figure out where this fits in your life. If it does fit and it does make sense, great, utilize it, have it support you and validate what you already know to be true. I hope that's the case. If it doesn't fit for any reason or things don't seem to add up, you're like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Don't worry, that doesn't mean anything's wrong or broken. You just might be working on something different at this time, or it could be, you know, other planetary influences are taking place for you in the month of January. It could also be the houses that your sign might have been in. Those things can affect things too. So I can't necessarily cover readings for each and everything. So take that into account. Just know that it's not like anything's wrong or bad. And then the other thing is if you do figure out where this fits in your life and you're utilizing it in that way, always make your decision first and foremost from your own intelligence and intuition versus anything I say, right? You want to use these readings as a source of support or validation, but not necessarily to make the decisions for you. They may give you insight or foresight, but you are responsible for the actions and the choices that you make. So keeping that in mind, any decisions from any of my videos that you make in your personal life are your responsibility. Always take what I say, you know, secondary to your own intelligence and intuition, and to anybody that you might be dealing with that may be a professional in their field, like a doctor, a lawyer, a therapist, a police officer, a probation officer. I know how you Geminis can get. I'm just saying, you get the drift though. You guys know, but you guys are thinkers. You're not gonna, you already have, like, you know, thought about whatever you need to think about. You know what you need, Gemini. So, all right, let's get into this and see what we've got going on. The guide card for the month is coming from the Wisdom of the Oracle deck. And I use this because I just feel like the name Wisdom is in the title. And I feel like that fits well with the air signs, them being ruling over the intellect and the realm of thought. So I thought I'd bring these in. So this card is going to give us a little insight into what we may be experiencing, looking at what might be guiding us, or, you know, bringing us through the month of January. Anyways, so we've got risk. Card number 40, which is a 4. To me, 4s are about bringing in some semblance of stability, kind of maybe firming up or grounding some things. When I look at this card, to me, I get a little bit of a barrenness from this card. There might be, this could represent as the situation that we are involved in is already barren or not bearing fruit. The brown nature of this path makes me feel like either if we're not already over it, we're in fear that if we make the wrong decision or take the risk that we might end up with less than what we have. Does that make sense? So this road and the brownness of it makes me feel as though my Geminis might be hiding a little bit. They might be a little bit worried. They might be a little bit not sure about the outcome of things in the month of January. And it could be that you're already in a situation that feels dead or drying up or ending or needs to end, and you're aware of that, and you need to take the risk of departing from said situation, whatever that may be, however that manages, like shows up in your life. You have to figure out where that thing may be, but it's obvious to me as I'm looking at this path. We understand the work involved. We understand the sort of maybe what we've already done within said situation, the history that we have with said situation, and the risk involved with maybe, say, leaving it. I feel like this path to me feels a little bit like it's that phrase, if I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, right? It kind of reminds me of that, where although this path doesn't look so fruitful or abundant to me, it's like it's familiar to the Geminis, right? So this might be something that we've done over and over again, kind of thinking that, you know what, at least I'm familiar with this. It may not be the best situation for me, but it's comfortable, right? It may not give me exactly what I want, but it's comfortable, right? And this could be applied to anything. This could be jobs. This could be a relationship for some of you, or of any kind, right? A relationship with a family member where you're dealing with the same sort of behavior, you know, whatever it is that's going on for you that you're not enjoying, or that it's not bringing you what you need. The chance here is do we take the risk to sort of change paths? Do we take the risk to sort of look to something else, remove ourselves from a situation, or head towards something that we might not see the outcome of, right? But therein lies the risk, right? Therein lies the sort of the possibility of potential reward, right? But there's some work involved, and there has been work involved in the past for those of you that are already in a situation that you're aware of that's not working, right? And so January might be the month where we are assessing that risk, assessing that, you know, for those of you that are already in the situation that's, you know, drying you up, not working for you, whatever, how do we move away from that? And for those of you that are wanting to get to something new, you know, there might be this idea of, if I make the wrong decision, what does that mean? And that's the risk involved. Ultimately, this being a card number 40, I like this because it speaks to this idea that whatever you guys choose to do, or however you choose to do it, the goal here, or what the sort of impetus is for this, is to get to a state of more stability and to feel more clear on what's going on. We may have to take risks to do that, right? And so, but ultimately, I think the goal, that being the goal, that number 4 feels like the goal to me. It means that we will be leading ourselves maybe through some unknowable situations, right? Or some things that might feel risky to us, to a state of hopefully more stability and clarity, per se, right? So let's get into the cards and see what's going on, and we'll kind of maybe come back to this card as we go through whatever I see in the tarot. So this first card is the center card. I call it your sort of your default setting. It's where the majority of the Geminis will be centered at during the month of January. It gives us a little insight into kind of not only where you're sort of vibing at throughout the month, but also it kind of could give us insight into what you could potentially be creating for the future. This is not a card that you'll be at the entire month. It just kind of gives me an overall look at sort of where you're at throughout January. So let's see what we've got. Okay, I'll go with this. So it's the Knave of Swords. It's a beautiful card for the sign of Gemini because it is Swords element, which is air element, which is totally up Gemini's alley. It's going to feel comfortable. The Knave, though, indicates a youthfulness, a need to learn, the possibility of learning, sometimes new messages, new realizations, new truths coming to light. The Swords element is like I said, your guys' thing. It's about our mental realm. It's about where the Geminis feel most at home, where you guys kind of like to operate from or control from. And I don't mean control in a bad way. What I mean is when we feel like we're in control, we're aware of a situation, we're able to manage a situation. To me, that is what I mean by control. And so with the Geminis, the air suit or the sword suit is our home place, right? So mentally, we're going to be working Mentally, we're going to be learning in January. Mentally, this knave may be assessing some of the risks that may need to be taken to get ourselves to a place where we feel more stable, where we feel more validated, where we feel seen. For each one of you, it's going to be a different risk or a different desire that's pushing you forward. The knave to me feels optimistic always and open and enthusiastic. He may not have all of the answers. And I was saying that with this path, we don't necessarily know the outcome, but we've got to be willing to learn, willing to make those changes, willing to grow. And that's the Knave of Swords energy as the center. So I like this as your guys' center card. It says that you're at least open, you're not resisting change or potential transformation. You're actually open to it, willing to learn in the moment as the process goes on around you. Will it be a little scary? It can be, because the knave is generally like a child or a page. You know, they don't necessarily have all of the answers in the moment, but that's kind of also their magic, because it sort of frees them up to learn and also maybe bend the rules a little bit, take risks and that sort of thing. So I like that these two cards are together, because I feel like with anything, of any of the court cards, I would say the knaves and the knights would be the risk takers of the courts, right? So we like that this is here, and there's something to be learned here, right? And it's in your elemental suit. So I like that too. It's going to feel what's the word? Like, it won't be comfortable, because the knave to me speaks to this feeling of, you know, there's this learning. So you guys are going to be in the moment learning and sort of present time going like, oh shit, what do I do? But it being mental is sort of your wheelhouse, if that makes sense. So I do like that. All right, let's go to the foundation card. This card tells us a little bit about sort of what was going on in the past that opened the door for all the cards to be the way that they are today. Right? So this can be a card that is also sort of the memory of this card can either be holding everything in place as it is today, or it could be pushing things forward into the future, right? Because sometimes we allow our memories to affect our actions in the now. So let's see what this is. So this is the Chariot. So I love the depiction of this, because it's these two beautiful peacocks instead of horses. Sometimes the Chariot's depicted with like lions, like these big, fierce, powerful animals. These to me are more regal and delicate and beautiful. Chariot is Cancerian energy. It's very fast-moving energy. It's about change. So if there's been lots of fast-moving changes that have led us up to this point, maybe our head is still spinning a little bit. That could be the unknown of the knave. That could also be some of this risk is sort of like, oh my God, what's next kind of energy. The Chariot is not going to drop us, though, is my feeling. When I look at this, it feels like there's been moves or changes that have moved us in directions that we maybe didn't necessarily expect. We might have felt them a little bit more emotionally. We might have felt a little bit they might have felt a little bit outside of our control and what I mean by that is through environmental situations that we couldn't control, you know, maybe the behavior of others, the needs of others. You know, sometimes it can be like Chariot can even represent as, you know, maybe we get removed from a job unexpectedly, but it's moving us to something better, right? Chariot has a celebratory aspect to it that I feel like ultimately it's moving us towards something better. Are we willing to take that risk and continue to move forward, not knowing exactly the full plan, right? There is an ability to plan with that Knave of Swords in the center, but it's very much learning as we go. And so that may be a little bit uncomfortable for you guys, but I also like that this Chariot is in the foundation space, meaning that any changes that have led up, and this Chariot could represent all of 2020 for some of you, right? Just with the way that the world has changed in 2020 is a lot, right? And it's maybe affected us in great ways. And I'm just using that because that's something that all of you can connect to and relate to. There might be specific changes that you guys are picking up on and know about that, you know, you can attribute this card to. But what I'm saying is ultimately the Chariot is trying to take us somewhere better suited to us. Sometimes, you know, through feeling a little bit uncomfortable or out of control, not necessarily like we're even driving the Chariot. Sometimes it can feel like it's moving so quickly. We're like, whoa, slow down. So if we've had that feeling going on with us in the past, that's okay. I feel like it's moving us towards this state of uh, something better ultimately. And so we need to trust this. The fact of the matter is this is in the foundation. So this also says to me it could potentially be pushing the what we're doing now into the future. And I believe that because this is the Chariot and the Chariot is so much about forward movement or momentum, I feel like this is also telling me that this card is pushing whatever's going on in the now. So whatever changes needed to take place or whatever changes were maybe sort of, I don't want to say forced upon us, but like outside of our control, they started to take place in, say, maybe the last few months as an example. Maybe some things, some changes, unexpected or otherwise, have shown up for us, and they've steered us in directions we didn't see coming, right? And we're now in this place of, what do I do? Do I take the risk? Do I move away from this situation? Do I move towards that? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? The Knave of Swords is willing to learn that, right? But the Chariot is also the idea that the decisions will need to be made. They'll need to be made fairly quickly. They might need to be made, in succession in a way that we don't necessarily always feel quite so comfortable, if that makes sense, but we will learn from them and we will be fine is kind of the vibe that I'm getting, because the Chariot is a supportive card. It is major arcana. It is ultimately leading us towards what I believe to be a better place, ideally. And so, but are we willing to risk that, to find that for ourselves? That's kind of the key here. All right, so let's go to the Spirit or Soul card up above you. This tells me where your spirit or soul is at and what it's working on. So this is the Nine of Swords. Swords, again, air element, your guys' wheelhouse for sure. The Nine of Swords is like the nightmares, false fears, anxieties, worry, that sort of thing. This is the stuff that Gemini needs to let go of, is my feeling. This is the stuff that Gemini needs to sort of combat against, or maybe be aware of as it creeps up into your head in the month of January. If you guys are finding yourselves in states of fear, worry, unease, just not feeling comfortable around things, is certainly mentally, if you can't let go of certain thoughts that are bothering you or troubling you, this is what I feel like your spirit is trying to bring to you, is like to come to some sort of personal completion with them, come to some sort of understanding that these are just fears, they're not necessarily facts, and that although we might be fearful, that Knave of Swords in the center speaks to this idea of remaining open and learning as we go, right? Instead of sort of perpetuating unfounded fear or worry that is no longer serving us, and it hasn't been maybe for a while. And that may be the risk that's involved here, right? And letting go of some of the things that we feel as though maybe have kept us safe. And those things aren't necessarily keeping us safe, is sort of what this Nine of Swords in the spirit space is telling me. It's sort of like keeping us in just a state of worry, and we want to move away from that versus continue with that, if that makes sense. And let me tell you, 2020 was a year where worry was, it was fertile ground to plant seeds of worry and fear and all of that sort of stuff. So now I feel like this is Gemini's opportunity to maybe move away from that. And hopefully you will be able to find a productive way to do that. And I think that you will, especially with that Chariot in the foundation position. It's sort of trying to move you away from all of that stuff. All right, so let's go to the outside influences. These are two influences that are affecting you either positively or negatively in the month of January that we should be made aware of. They can represent as either people, sometimes events, sometimes things more like nebulous, like energies or belief systems that we've adopted that aren't necessarily of us, but they are taught to us, and we carry them with us. Okay, so what is the Five of Swords? So the Five of Swords is usually about difficulty. There could be some hard times coming up in January, in the sense it could be fighting, it could be struggle, arguments, differences of opinions, clashing, that sort of a thing. We may have to fight for whatever it is that we get this month. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I just sort of get a feeling that, and I also feel like with this cat in the center, we do end up somewhat victorious, or we do meet the challenges, but we are being challenged this month in some way. We are, whether it's through the opinions of others or through situations that are outside of our control. I feel like this Five of Swords is challenging us in some way, and that may be what's also stimulating. These challenges may be stimulating those Nine of Swords up in the spirit space, where do we automatically shift into fear and worry, or are we going to stand victorious on some of these thoughts, like how we have this cat seated on top of the swords. He's kind of maybe come up against the opinions of others, or the situations outside of his control that have wanted him to engage in ways that would stimulate sort of that Nine of Swords energy. We don't need to do that today, is kind of my vibe that I'm getting from this. So we may have to see sides of ourselves or other people or situations that aren't necessarily pleasant, but those things will allow us the opportunities to kind of through maybe a debate or argument or something, some sort of a struggle, we are going to learn something about ourselves. Fives are also very representational of change, right? So these situations that are coming at us in the month of January are going to offer us opportunities to create change in our lives. With that Chariot down below as the driving force, we want that change. Whether we understand it or not, we do want to move away from this. There was somewhere, my feeling as I'm looking at these cards and what I'm sort of sensing is that somewhere along the way, Gemini asked for this, right? We maybe didn't realize exactly what we were asking for, but what we're getting is in my opinion, what we need in the month of January so that we can move forward in a way that is more stable and productive for us for the rest of the year. All right, so let's look to the other outside influence. So we have the Tower. Shit. All right, the Tower is not necessarily a bad card, and I'm going to give you my Tower spiel. The Tower to me is about like sort of the environment or God or however you want to classify it. It's about situations outside of our control that are shifted and changed in a way that produce within us an opportunity to release things gracefully, to let go of things with a sense of grace and security versus a sense of fear and resistance, right? So ultimately, Towers situations are those in the moment situations where we think that everything is fine. It's usually something that we don't see coming, and it kind of shakes the foundations. It's generally something that was built on a faulty foundation. And it's usually fairly significant because it is major arcana, right? It's one of those shakeups where we're like, oh shit, I didn't see this coming. But the truth of the matter is Tower moments always lead us to a better place. And that's what needs to be embraced in that. So with the Five of Swords and the Tower moment happening on either side of us as outside influences, I would say that January might be a month where we are feeling challenged by the outside environment, certainly. But I also think that with the Tower comes this opportunity to explore grace and feeling, when we lean into these situations and we just allow them to be, and we accept them as they are, even if they first appear as losses, they're not necessarily losses. They're these moments that we go through and then we look back on them like a year or two later and we're like, oh shit, if I never had that happen to me, I wouldn't be here now. Right? Those are generally Tower moments. So they serve a purpose. They actually serve a higher purpose that we don't fully understand because we're so busy caught up in, our fear, our ego, our ideas of what we think we need. And we don't understand that there might be something else that serves us better. With that Chariot down below, I keep going back to this Chariot. That Cancerian emotive, mothering, like sometimes smothering energy that is pushing us forward. I feel like, as I'm looking at all of these cards, I feel like Gemini, the mental picture that I'm getting in my mind's eye right now is Gemini might feel a little bit in January like you guys are getting pushed through a keyhole. But I think that the keyhole actually unlocks a door, right, in that sense. And so, yes, there might be some pinching, some discomfort, some adjustments that need to be made. But these adjustments are ultimately, again, I'll say this, for our own highest good. And that as we ease into them and we accept them and we allow them to shift, transform, and change, we also shift, transform, and change. If our first reaction is fear, worry, denial, resistance, we go back into that Nine of Swords energy, which our higher self is asking us to address. It's like showing us that like our first reaction may not be our best reaction when we are faced with adversity. And that might be why this risk card is showing up as the guide here. Is it like, do we take the risk of trusting sort of what's in front of us or what's happening to us and allow it to just be and continue to move through it with grace and acceptance and learn from it as we're in it? That's the Knave of Swords in the center. So if people start going sideways on you, or situations start falling apart that you thought weren't going to fall apart or shouldn't fall apart, they need to, and to allow that. Now, for each one of you, you're going to have, I'm going to just say this because I don't want my Geminis freaking out, but for each one of you, judging where your planets are at, right? Because some of you Geminis may have totally different houses, planets, all of that sort of stuff. Whatever your unexpected tower moment is, it could be in varying degrees for each and every one of you, right? Some may have really more significant tower moments. Those could be my triple Geminis that exist out there. And some of you could have lesser degree tower moments where you lose something that you wanted to keep hold of, but you're like, well, I can let that go, right? If it means my sanity or keeping that job, I'll let the job go. You know what I'm saying? So there's varying degrees to what you guys are each going to experience. So I don't want you guys like freaking out thinking, oh, January is a hard month for Gemini. I think that actually January is a month that is going to show us and move us into a state of where we need to be so that we're better prepared for the rest of the year. That's my prediction for the Geminis. I don't even know what I did for your yearlies. I don't remember what your first yearly card was for January, but it'd be interesting to go back and look at the yearly and see if there was any corroboration or if I could see from that card what all this is going on here, because this feels like a little bit of a toss-up in the sense that things might come into question, things may be challenged. Again, the Five of Swords, other people challenging us, or we're feeling challenged, or that we have to maybe fight for our position, fight for what we believe in, that sort of a thing. There is a victoriousness to that card, and it is Swords, which is air element, which is like synchronized or in sync with the sign of Gemini. So it's not all bad, right? But it is, I almost want to say it's there to make us face our fears. Like the Tower is there because that Nine of Swords sitting up in the spirit space says to me, our spirit or our higher self wants us to address where our anxieties are, where our unfounded fears are, where our insecurities are, where whatever keeps us up at night is what it wants us to look like square in the eye, right? That Chariot could be moving us. Remember when I said at the beginning of this risk thing where I said some of us might be leaving a situation or heading to a situation and we don't know which way this road is going? That Chariot might be leading us to the very thing that we don't want to deal with within ourselves, within our own insecurities and fears, only so that it can then take us out of there or away from that. Is kind of this vibe that I'm sort of getting now. This road almost looks like it's got two different directions, and Gemini gets to decide which. And speaking of, okay, yeah, Gemini in two different directions, the twins, hello. So Gemini gets to decide which way they go, right? Are they going to go down the road of fear, anxiety, worry, and anguish, which is something that is probably quite comfortable to you guys? Only because you are highly mentally adept. There's nothing wrong with living that way. It maybe has served you in the past, but to me, it feels like the Nine of Swords up there is now at this point, it's maybe no longer serving you. It's time to open up to something new. And that's the beauty of the Knave that we see in the center there, is there's this openness and this ability to hopefully be teachable about how we don't necessarily need to let these anxieties in, even in the midst of controversy or challenges, i.e. the Tower. Okay, so let's look at the potential outcomes card. And what I mean by this is where things could potentially end up for most of the Geminis at the end of January, barring that nothing major changes, right? So If this is a negative card, though, I want you to understand it's not set in stone. So we can utilize this card as a warning to let ourselves, to use our free will to make choices and changes to affect the outcome. So it does not have to come to pass. But if it is a good card, we can take heart in the fact that we're naturally sort of heading towards it. And we don't need to do much to change things, right? So let's see what this is. Okay, I love this. And it's funny too, because, so this is the Knave of Chalices, or the Page of Cups, right? This is definitely Pisces energy. I want to show you something though, or just explain something. The last, I did the Aquarius reading this morning, really early in the morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning, because I was up so early last night. And it ended on the King of Cups. So I think that's interesting because you guys are the second air sign that I'm doing, and both of you guys end out in this state of King of Cups or Page of Cups. So there's an emotional connection to all of whatever's going on for the Geminis too. The King of Cups, or sorry, the Page of Cups to me is about magical thinking. It's about a sweetness. There's an emotional sweetness. Again, we have that youth of the Knave, right, or the Page. There's that openness and that willingness to learn. Whatever horrors of the mind or worries that we've been carrying, fears, those sort of things, as we address them and as we move through this stuff, the Knave of Chalices or the Page of Cups to me feels like a nice way to end out this month, in the sense that things will feel a little bit more settled. We're certainly going to feel a little bit more connected, not only to ourselves, but I also think a little bit more to our own higher selves, to the potential of our spirit guides, for those of you that work with those entities or spirits, to our own God, whatever that is. That's the sort of magical aspect of the Page of Cups, right? He's sort of connected to the other realm. He sort of hears, and sees and connects to things through the emotions in a way that others don't. And I think that that's the gift that comes here for Gemini, through doing this work, through suffering, maybe the Tower moment, through facing the fears of the Nine of Swords, through, being challenged and sort of succeeding mentally over some of these challenges and continuing to move forward. Where Gemini ends up at the end of the month is this place of sort of an emotional openness, but there's an optimism and there's an awareness, a new awareness that you have that connects you to I don't know if it's a better sense of self or a deeper sense of self, but it's more like, I don't know, connected to the magic that is within you, is sort of the vibe that I'm getting from this, right? It may not feel like we have all of the answers still yet, because it is still a Knave, but there is this hope here. There is this kind of, I get this real sense of peace from this card, as far as, if any of you were worried about whatever your Tower moment may be, I wouldn't worry too much, because it's leading us to this place of emotional well-being and positivity by the month's end. And it's interesting too, because we see these two white cats. The white cat that's here in the Chariot is also this white cat that's sitting. To me, they look very similar. So, and white always represents this idea of purity, this idea of, maybe being free of whatever it is that was hindering us, and certainly there's a freedom to the Knave of Cups or the Page of Cups to me, with that sort of thinking outside the box, being tuned into more subtle messages and frequencies and all of that sort of stuff, where we can connect in more intimate ways with the world around us. That all is sort of Page of Cups stuff to me. So I think that for my Geminis, the risk is worth the reward, but you have to trust that this month and move towards that, no matter what kind of comes your way, right? Don't fret if things shift a little bit, if you're challenged in any way, shape, or form. If you feel sort of challenged, just be open to learning, open to new experiences. Easing into everything through forms of gratitude and acceptance will allow you to move through these things a little bit more easily, and also allow you to release anything that sort of may cause you anxiety or fear that really isn't needed where you're heading. Does that make sense? And I will say this too, the Page of Cups to me is totally probably one of the most fearless cards of the deck. It's like, in the sense that the Page of Cups to me feels like he's sort of so out there in a way, you know, like talking to the ethers, that he's just wide open and enjoying everything that he experiences. Similar, almost like to the Fool in the Major Arcana, right? Where the Fool is all about, you know, just remaining open and almost a little bit naive in a way to what life has to offer, and is willing to take the journey. And the Page is also willing to sort of connect and communicate in ways that aren't necessarily the societal norm, but they're still just as fulfilling and beautiful and deep and magical. All right, so that is your forecast, Gemini. So, hey, Christina, how are you, dear? Hi, Claudette. Hey, Jamie. So that is your Gemini forecast, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching. I really appreciate it. Please share this out with any Geminis that may need to know. As I said, you guys, each of your planets are going to be different in your influences. You know, if you're a Gemini sun sign and you have, one of you has a Capricorn rising and the other one has a Scorpio rising, you may have different experiences of all of these cards. So I don't want you guys sweating this stuff. I think ultimately this is about how we act and react within situations that may feel adverse, and what are our first thoughts around those? Are those thoughts of worry? Are they thoughts of fear or lack? Those are things we may want to let go of this month. That's what I feel like is the message here. And in letting go of those things, we move to a place that's much more peaceful and much more calm and much more sort of connected within ourselves. I hope that makes sense. All right, you guys, thank you so much. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're watching via YouTube. Vice versa, if you're watching from Facebook, follow the business page. And you can also cross-platform if you'd like, i.e. if you're on Facebook, go and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and vice versa. If you're on YouTube, follow over to the Facebook page and hit the follow there. All right, you guys, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you guys next month to see how this all plays out. All right, have a great day. Bye-bye.